I never thought much about my parking spot. It was just a convenience. Nothing special, but it was mine. A small part of my day-to-day routine. Tuesday evening felt like any other. Exhausted from work, I was ready to kick off my shoes and unwind. But as I pulled into the lot of my apartment complex, my mood soured instantly. My spot was taken. It was a sleek, black SUV. I hadn't seen it around before, but parking in someone's reserved space wasn't uncommon for visitors. I grabbed a sticky note from my bag and scribbled a quick, polite message. "This spot is reserved. Please park elsewhere." I stuck it on the windshield and headed inside, trying not to let the irritation linger. The next morning, the SUV was gone. But something caught my eye. A single yellow flower lying on the pavement where it had been parked. It seemed too deliberate to be accidental, but I shrugged it off. Maybe someone had dropped it. A couple of days later, I returned home and stopped dead in my tracks. The SUV was back, parked in my spot again. This time, the same yellow flower was placed neatly on the hood of my car. My stomach tightened as I stared at it. It felt unnerving in a way I couldn't quite explain, but I convinced myself it was still just coincidence. I tried to peek inside the SUV, but the tinted windows revealed nothing. Frustrated and growing uneasy, I made up my mind to tell the property manager about it. By the next day, the SUV had relocated, parked in a different spot far away from my building. For a moment, I felt relief. It seemed like the issue was finally resolved, but that relief was short-lived. Over the next few days, I noticed the SUV parked in various locations around the complex. It was never in the same place twice, but it was always somewhere visible. I started to pay closer attention to my surroundings, double-checking my locks and looking over my shoulder. One Friday evening, I saw the SUV parked in the farthest corner of the lot. As I hurried past it, trying to shake my paranoia, I caught movement inside, something shifting in the shadows. My heart raced. I didn't stick around to investigate. By morning, the SUV was gone, but the sense of being watched stayed with me. That black vehicle and its yellow flower felt less like coincidence and more like a silent message. After the SUV disappeared that morning, I tried to convince myself that everything was fine. Maybe it was just a visitor who didn't understand the rules, or someone with an odd sense of humor leaving flowers behind. But my gut told me otherwise. The unease stuck to me like glue, and I started noticing things I'd never paid attention to before. For instance, as I walked to my car one evening, I caught myself glancing toward the far corners of the lot, half expecting the SUV to reappear. When it didn't, I felt relief, but also something heavier, like the weight of a storm lingering on the horizon. That night, as I sat on my couch watching TV, I got up to pour myself some tea. My apartment overlooked the parking lot, and the blinds in my kitchen were half open. As I glanced out the window, my chest tightened. The SUV was back. It was parked further away this time, not in anyone's designated spot, but angled in a way that gave it a clear view of my building. I could feel its presence even from inside my home. I tried to ignore it, grabbing my mug and settling on the couch again, but my curiosity gnawed at me. Why was it always here? Was someone inside? I stayed up longer than usual that night, scrolling through articles about stalking and odd encounters. I told myself I was just being paranoid, that I needed to let it go and focus on something else. But as the hours ticked by, the feeling in my gut didn't go away. The next day, I mentioned the SUV to my neighbor, hoping she might have noticed it too. But her response sent chills down my spine. "I haven't seen anything," she said. "But now that you mention it, I did hear something weird outside last night. It sounded like footsteps near your door." I swallowed hard and tried to laugh it off. But the thought of footsteps outside my apartment while that SUV sat in the lot left me shaken. I decided to keep the blinds fully closed that evening, but the blinds didn't make me feel safer. I kept hearing faint creaks, the kind you'd usually dismiss as nothing but the building settling. Yet tonight, Every noise felt amplified, every sound a potential warning. Then, sometime after midnight, I heard it, a car engine idling softly in the distance. My hands froze mid-scroll on my phone. I stayed still, listening, and felt the hairs on my neck stand on end. I crept to the window and peeked through the slats. The SUV was parked in the same spot as last night, and this time I was sure I saw movement. Someone shifting in the driver's seat, watching my building. That night was the worst yet. The SUV hadn't moved since I spotted it idling in the lot, and I couldn't shake the feeling that someone inside was watching me. I tried to convince myself it was all in my head, that I was overreacting. But every time I tried to focus on something else, my thoughts circled back to that shadowed driver's seat. Around 2 a.m., I decided I couldn't take it anymore. Grabbing my phone, I called the property manager, hoping they'd pick up despite the late hour. The voicemail greeted me instead. Frustrated, I hung up and stared at the phone for what felt like ages. Should I call the police? What would I even say? Minutes dragged by, and I couldn't sit still. I paced my apartment, triple-checking the locks on the doors and windows. Every creak and groan of the building made me jump. I finally gathered enough courage to look outside again, though part of me didn't want to know if the SUV was still there. It was. This time, it was closer, parked just beneath the street lamp outside my building. I could see the faint outline of the vehicle in the dim light, and my heart sank as I realized the driver's seat was empty. The realization hit me like a freight train. Whoever had been in the SUV was no longer there. My instincts screamed at me to lock myself in the bathroom, or call someone, anyone. But before I could act, I heard it. A knock. It wasn't loud, just faint enough to freeze me in place. It came from the door leading to the hallway outside my apartment. I stood there, clutching my phone, staring at the door as though it might vanish if I blinked. The knock came again, softer this time, like whoever was on the other side was waiting for me to respond. I backed up slowly, pressing my back against the farthest wall. My breathing shallow and rapid, the sound of my own heartbeat drowned out everything else. Then, just as suddenly as it started, the knocking stopped. Minutes passed, but it felt like hours. I didn't dare approach the door or even look through the peephole. Eventually, I managed to call the police. When they arrived, they searched the building and the parking lot, but found nothing. Not the SUV, not the driver, not even the faintest trace of someone near my apartment. I moved out within a week. No one ever figured out who it was, or why they targeted me, but every now and then, I still think about the yellow flower and the knocking on my door.